Nice one. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another week here at RGM, here at the podcast. I'm Cole Maloney. How are you doing? You all right? Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this on YouTube, do us a favor, will you please? Because only 90% of viewers that watch this video aren't subscribed to the video. Do us a favor. I'm not going to bang on about it every week, but go on, press that little subscribe button down there for us. Nice one. And we, as always, we never let you down. Look at this little face we've got with us today. We've got the BBC's Ellie Colton. Hi, mate.
And this thing as well.
And this thing's, yeah, who's your mate then? Tell us about your mate.
So Luna the pug is the most clingy. She's a rescue dog. She's very clingy. She's got a tiny head. It looks like I'm pulling her about. I'm not, but she's got the smallest head of any pug ever. She likes to just sleep, or she looks like E.T. Usually she just wants to sleep, and we're just like this all the time. But she's very, so if she makes like a choking noise, she's all right. It's just pugs off this weird cough. I do take her to them, and then she just wants to lick me. So
okay, that's right. Luna. Look, hi Luna, you're all right, mate. Welcome to the world. And today, as we record this, we are celebrating. We're trying to wear it pink. This is the closest thing I've got myself personally. Today on Twitter, well, this is going out after anyway, but just so you know why I'm trying to wear pink today. Music goes pink today, and it's all it's Breast Awareness Month as well. So we're just wearing it pink and supporting the campaign today. Do you have any thoughts and feelings around Breast Cancer Awareness Month yourself, Ellie, while we're just introducing it?
Yeah, I mean, let's count this lipstick as pink because I know it's really bad. I meant to be like aware of the news, but I didn't know that was happening. But everybody's had scares and stuff, and personally, I've not had anybody in my life that's had breast cancer. But I don't think that checking your boobs should be such a scary thing. Luna's going to just bark all the way through this now. But yeah, the fact that people are worried to check it. I know when you go and get a mammogram done, obviously I know you won't have experience of this, Carl, because you don't have breasts, but people are scared because it like clamps them down and gets them in a vice and stuff. But oh my God, if it saves your life, do it. That's my message to them.
Well, thanks for joining us. I've known about you for quite a while, and you've been on quite a journey, you know. Congratulations on getting the BBC Radio Sheffield breakfast job as well, mate. Congratulations.
I know, it's been just crazy because I've gone from 5 years ago is when I sort of joined the BBC, just over 5 years ago. It was 5 years in May. And I never imagined that I would be able to stay on this long, let alone like get to today. And I've always thought that I've done rubbish in interviews and stuff like that. So to actually have sat through a couple of board meetings, because I mean I was doing an evening show, so I was just like applying for every presenting job that I could actually do, and sitting through these board meetings. You've got the big wigs on like sat all next to each other asking you questions, and it's like, when's the right time to try and be funny, and when's the right time, because you don't want to look like some clown, do you, just trying to laugh all the way through it. But yeah, like I started originally just doing a Friday night show with my good friend Joel Mitchell, who now works at 5 Live and has done stuff on Radio 1. Yay! And we did Hello Friday, which was such a stupid, ironic name because it was at the end of a Friday night. It should have been Bye Friday or Hello Saturday or something, but we argued about that afterwards. And we did that for about two years, something like that, just under 2 years. And then he left to go to Leeds. And then the pandemic hit, and then I had nothing, and I thought, oh God, the dream's like over before it's begun, sort of thing. And then they asked me to come back just after the pandemic to start presenting Upload, which I did produce as well. But the thing is, when you're doing like a 2-hour slot on a week, like actually getting up to doing it full time just feels so far away. And especially in local radio, like I know a lot of the presenters are, you know, that are doing it full time, or at least like 30 plus. So to sort of do it under that bracket, I didn't think would be something that would be achievable. And luckily it has been. Yeah.
Nice one. Well, we're going to come to all the nitty gritty of. I am interested in the actual job interview and actually pitching for a show as well. We'll park that for now and come back to that. We'll tease people now because I'm fascinated with that. But just rewinding a little bit, like before the BBC and that kind of stuff, Ellie, what drove you to have this passion for radio as a young lass, just growing up and being in school, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, so originally, when I was younger, I always was interested in film and things like that. I wanted to be an artist, but I was no good at drawing. And then I wanted to be a PE teacher, but my dad said, and he shouldn't have said this because he is not misogynistic in any shape, way, or form, but he was like, you'll be out of a job by 35 if you want to be a PE teacher. And I was like, fair enough, because you've got to be like young and fit. I had a 60-year-old PE teacher called Miss Bow because she was fitter than all of us when we were like doing PE at school at 15. So
I'm trying to remember my PE teacher. Yeah, Mr. Potts at Myrtle Springs in Sheffield. He were knocking on when we were a kid. Yeah, they can get, you can have that career in PE and be a bit older. Yeah.
But I just think maybe he thought that because he's always worked in management and IT, that would have been a bit of a shoot down from the career that he had, which is so wrong. But I mean, bloody hell, being a teacher now, how difficult is it? So like, respect to everybody doing a job in education. Yeah. And then I started watching the news and stuff, and I just wanted to be Susanna Reid so bad. I can't tell you. I was like, she is the woman to be. And I wanted to get into like film club and stuff at primary school. So I made my dad and my sister, who was 3 years younger than me, she must have been about 8 or something, shoot a video with me where I was a newsreader on the kitchen table. And this alien had come in and like ruined everything and stuff. And I got Holly to sit there in a little alien mask, my sister, and it's just, So that was the start of it, really, sort of around 11, 12.
And where's that footage? Where's that footage now?
I know, we'll have to find. It's on one of the, the proper fat, like, before 2010, what are they called? Bloody hell, memory sticks that are like, literally like that fat. Be in a bookcase somewhere, probably. But from then, I was actually thinking about like, I want to be a journalist, I want to be this, that, because it seems like quite a posh profession when you're like, be a journalist, like very like cool, smoking cigs and drinking in the office, even though that's like way years before I would ever have been a part of something like that. Not that I was thinking about smoking cigs and drinking booze in the office at 10, but you understand what I'm saying. I thought it was cool. Okay. And then when I was like in secondary school, this for me is just like a joke, and it's changed so much now because my secondary school have been in touch with me since I got this job, and that is that there was nothing. If you wanted to go into the media, do journalism, commentary, reporting, whether it was like print, online, or broadcast, there was literally nothing. Like, no teacher that had any interest. They never brought any guests in to do talks and assemblies that they had every week or whatever. And then when they did, I don't know why I'm whispering as if they're not going to hear me. when they did mock interviews in year 10, so it would have been about like 14, 15, they said, we've matched you up with somebody to do with, the career that you want to go in, media journalism. They put me with somebody from HSBC Bank. Now, right. Carl, I was very respectful at school. But when I was sat with this poor lass from HSBC Bank, I was like, what? Like, I switched off completely. And it's not in a rude way where I was like, ooh, well, I'm leaving, sort of like delinquent thing. But I just felt like this is just the biggest waste of time. So she probably thought I was just some like absolute airhead that didn't care. I mean, half of that was true. But then, and you can shut me up if I'm talking too much. But I started writing for Active 8 magazine, which is like a little postcode magazine in SA, and the guy that does it, listen to us snoring now, Luna, cradling like a little baby just did. He's basically, I got in touch with him, this guy called Mike Firth that owns Heron Publications. I was like, I want to be a journalist. He was like, we can write a voluntary column for us every month if you want. So I only stopped doing that this year. So that was like 9-10 years nearly of just writing these little that everybody's grandparents read, and it was really, really nice. So from then, they asked me to start appearing on Cat Cowan's Saturday Breakfast Show on Radio Sheffield, because people would come on who were like journalists or people of interest. Not that I was a person of interest. That sounds like I was wanted to come in and talk about trending stories in the news that week. And that was kind of like when it all properly started, really.
Yeah, well, I can remember having a similar kind of urge myself. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I liked the idea of media, and I did media at Norton College before that got knocked down. Did H&D at Norton College, and it's kind of where I fell in love with like radio, and that's kind of why I still do a podcast now, because I can remember the skills that I learned during that time to to create these audio things. And a lot of it was the film studies, which I'd never got behind. I weren't that asked about analyzing films and that kind of stuff. There's always parts of a course that you're just not as bothered about in there, and that you just do what you just sneeze, don't you? So it was there nothing like that around for you to support your urge to get into media?
No, like first of all, my mum worked at Norton College for like years and years, so it was funny that she'd be working there and I'd be at the school opposite and stuff. But yeah, there was literally, like, I'm kidding you, there was literally nothing at all. And I don't know, there might have been some like nerdy little media club outside of the school that people had congregated around that I didn't know about. I say nerdy in a respectful way, by the way, because it is like a nerdy thing to get involved with, but there was like nothing. And I remember as well, like the careers advisor at Meadowhead School, she's called Kerry, she still works there now, she's a brilliant woman. Like, she's like, when I realised how many people they've got in since, they had like the BBC Share Your Story thing and stuff that I was a part of but didn't go there around. It's like, that's so good. But she said you could do this sort of like BBC apprenticeship scheme, but you'd have to leave school. My mum would have had a heart attack.
Right. And how old are you then?
Oh, I think I was in 17, so it was first year of my A-levels, yeah. So, but I mean, before that, there was literally nothing. I'm not jumping over anything, but she said, you could, I thought, bloody hell, if I left my A-levels, because it was at a point where you did your AS levels, but they didn't count. So it wasn't like you could just choose to do an AS level and take that qualification. It was like, you did it, but it doesn't count. You just do your full A-level. It was really whatever. So obviously I didn't do that, but at that point in your life when it's your first opportunity that you're offered, you're kind of like, should I just jump at that? Like, should I just do it? And I am glad I didn't, because everything kind of fell into place after that anyway. And I mean, I wasn't already presenting by then, but I was already like going in and doing these little trending chats with Kat and stuff. You think you've made it after you've been on the radio once, and then you realise like, oh, I have to try a bit harder than that sort of thing. But yeah, there was like literally, other than that apprenticeship, there was just nothing. Like, that was it.
Well, I can't remember the first place that I saw you, but I could see you were talented, and you did a few interviews with us, didn't you, for RGM?
Yeah.
Conversation with Colton, we did a few of them, and that was, if I remember rightly, I can remember one of them was done on Division Street, social distanced.
Yes.
Because of the pandemic and stuff.
I think they all were, Sorry, I'm talking over you.
Oh, yeah, you did a few at Botanical Gardens, didn't you, with a few people? And I can remember it being like, we were trying to create content somehow in a pandemic, weren't we? And we were trying to do it in a way that we could get away with, really, by being. So you have to have proper wide cameras because everybody's spread wide apart with masks on and stuff. Yeah, that were interesting times, weren't it, for the industry, I suppose.
I know, and I mean, with all that was me sort of like, what I always tell people now, and I've done a few talks in colleges, which is nice, again, something I never thought I'd be doing, is don't just take your degree or whatever as like your only experience. Like, you just need to go out and make stuff, even if you're not getting paid for it. Like, just write your own blogs, create your own videos and stuff. So for me, that was really good. And I used to take my sister out with me. She hated it because she's so like nervous and stuff. Like, so even though she works in like for the Department of Education now, and she has to like, I was going to say own people, basically direct people, so she's confident now. But
that's your first answer there.
Yeah, I had to get my 2 cameras out and just sitting. We'd be sat there for like a good hour or so, and then it was like sitting there and nurturing it and chopping it all up, and then you're like, oh, like, who's ringing me? Go away. Oh my God, it's the estate agents. I'm not doing that. Go away. How do I get rid? Sent to voicemail. Sorry about that. Has that just ruined the video completely?
Go on.
I can't remember what's talked about. Oh yeah, so the video, so it'd have to, it'd be like an hour long or whatever, and then I'd have to take it down to like 20 minutes or something, like something that people would, properly watch and things. Because the thing is as well, like, when you're not, I mean, you're changing the shots and stuff, but when you're not like adding in sort of like animation or some kind of like graphics like you do, I mean, proper graphics, like not just like a little thing at the top. You sort of like, you don't want people to get bored and stuff. But yeah, it was really fun, and it was a good way to sort of get my confidence up, because I'd be sat in the car beforehand just like really scared and stuff and thinking, why have I done this? This isn't me. Do you know what I mean? And then I'd do it and I'd love it, and I'd be so glad that I spent the hour doing that. So
I'm like that still after all these years of doing these type of things. I still think like 5 minutes before, I just want them to cancel on me now. I can't be doing with this. It's too much. I just want to run away. I want to go over there. I need a poo straight away. What do I need to do? I'm panicking. And then you do it, and then everything's all right, isn't it?
I need a poo. I love that kind of humour. I need a poo. Yeah, that's the thing though. But then when you've done it, it's great. But I get, nervous before doing anything really. Yeah. Like, it's just, I can't tell you, when I had to speak at these schools and stuff, the first sort of like public speaking I ever did was I got invited back to my secondary school's GCSE assembly, where they get the certificates and stuff. And you've got all these parents that are all proud, and all these kids that are, too cool to listen to people at the front, even at 16. And I didn't know what to, like. Apparently I was there to be inspirational. I didn't know what the heck I was saying. The only thing I could think to say was tell them a funny story about how I met Dick and Dom at the Lead Mill at 2 a.m. in the morning. And like, you could have heard a pin drop. There's about 3 people that laughed. I thought, I'm going down here. It was really scary.
Tough crowd.
You what?
A tough crowd.
Oh my God, the toughest. And the thing is as well is that when you do a job like this, and you'll understand this, you think it's the best thing in the world. You can't understand why somebody wouldn't want to do that job. But if people don't care about the media, some people obviously don't even watch the news or whatever, or don't care about like watching interviews. They don't care who you are. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, you're trying to convince people for the first half an hour of whenever you're saying something at a place like that. So daunting.
Well, it's one thing you mentioned there is that you recorded for an hour, and I think it was my instruction to do it short and snappy, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I've completely changed the way I think about interviews these days. I think the short and snappy things are more old school now. I think more long form conversations where things could just go anywhere, I think they're more attractive to people. I think they consume media in different ways. People, their attention spans, my interviews go on for like an hour sometimes, and people just listen to it in the car, they listen to it out and about, they listen to it at the gym, whatever they're doing, and they'll listen to it whenever they want. So I think the more long form ones are more engaging these days, for people to like really invest in somebody and get to know somebody, rather than just a quick question with a band about asking about the favorite biscuits and shit. You know what I mean?
Oh, tell me about it. Well, that's the thing. I think that's something that has come out of the pandemic, is people had so much bloody time on their hands, and now it's like, a lot of people are still half working from home or whatever, and like on the break, I know you want a screen break and stuff, but you might just listen to a podcast and sit or just have it on the telly. So that's the thing. That sounds like such an old dad or something.
On my lunch, down and watch a video podcast or something, just some American or whatever it is. Yeah, I love it.
She loves it as well, even though she screams at the telly all the time.
There she is. Attention spans. So do it. So conversation with Colton, that kind of, we did all right, didn't we? We did the best of what we could. Lockdown, it was something to do, weren't it? While the world were asleep, it felt like. What kind of, like you mentioned the interview for BBC there, and BBC have got it feels like the BBC can be quite restrictive with what you are and what you aren't allowed to say. Is there like an instruction guide?
Well,
how's all that work?
For definitely. Oh, she's lying down now. That's good. You've soothed her, Carl, with your lovely voice. She's finally settled. There are guidelines 100%, and it's different for freelancers and staff. So all the stuff with Gary Lineker that we saw in the past year, where he was describing the tone of somebody in Parliament's rhetoric, and then it got compared to Nazis, and all this thing just totally unfolded and exploded online. So then they've recently, as in like in the last month, had a massive review on what freelancers can say and what BBC staff can say. So I'm moving into BBC staff now. But even before, I wouldn't have been writing anything controversial on Twitter, because this is the difference as well, is that if you share an opinion on I don't know, your favourite place to go on holiday. I know it seems really obvious, but this is where people get confused. Like, oh, it's a free speech. What are they allowed to say? You're being censored. It's like, no, like if you understand what you can and can't say. So I can, you know, say, oh, I really like, we're talking about biscuits now, this particular biscuit or something, or particular holiday destination, or my favourite dog groomers or whatever. It's different to you saying, you know, and I'm not speaking from experience here because I have no political affiliation. Yeah. But if you started saying like, oh, I'm a huge fan of the Green Party, like I want to join it someday, it's like, well, that's the difference, because then you're sharing an opinion that could sort of like make your audience think that you've got an agenda. So whenever, or if you had a Green councillor on your show and you were like being really lovely to them, but then you got a Tory one on and you were absolutely going in, like you just can't do that. It's the same on air as it would be like online. So I understand why people feel restricted. I do, and I feel like I can say that without it being controversial or without giving too much of an opinion, because you do sort of second guess what you can and can't say sometimes. But if you just think about it, then you're all right. Like I don't think it's too, you know, hard to get your head around.
What's the main difference between freelance BBC staff and what they can say compared to like BBC staff? What's the main difference with that bit?
So if you work in freelance, yeah, but you work as like a freelance sports presenter, you're allowed to express opinion, but not to like an extent where you could still say, you know, what politics you're into. I think people kind of draw the line at politics. Like if it was something about, you know, that goes without saying, like trans rights, gay rights, anything to do with like, you know, the rights of disabled people. Obviously, that's not a political thing. That racism, again, it's not political. It's right and wrong. Do you know what I mean? But then when you're doing something, talking about something where people have a choice to be one way or the other, like the fact that we vote, we have a choice, then it's like, it's an opinion. But kind of with BBC staff, you are sort of like locked into a box with that. But I personally don't have a problem with that. I didn't want people to think I'm saying this and I'm like, I'm in a cage. I don't think that. But then when you freelance, you do sort of have more leeway. Like if you wrote something and got called into the office and they were like, I don't know if I agree with that, then you could argue, you know, well, I'm freelance, and if you think I worded it too strongly, I'll just share my views in a different way. But that's when, if you look at people who are BBC staff on Twitter, I've not changed mine yet, but they always go, all views mine, so that if somebody did, you know, try and take them to task with it, then they would be like, oh well, it's just my views. But again, there's still
legally that should sort it. If you've just put a tagline on Twitter, that should sort any problem out, surely.
Just say, if I say anything wrong, it's just my opinion.
It's not to me. Just we're just going back a little bit, a question I forgot to ask you there. How important do you think, sorry, what magazine was it that you said you did you've only just hung up your coat with again, that you were doing for a number of years there? What was the name of the magazine there?
Activate. So
Activate, yeah. So how important do you think magazines are like that for people that are looking to progress, and you know, even RGM in a way, you know, like for people to learn how to write and get into media? How important are those things for budding people that are looking to get into the industry?
I'm not just saying this because I'm on with you, even though people might think that, but I wouldn't have got my job at the BBC had I not first been involved with Activate, and then obviously continuing and doing stuff with RGM as well, because I was doing stuff with you during a time where I didn't even have a job at the BBC, because I was on that break between when the pandemic started and then them actually bringing me back. But if I didn't start doing Activate again, which is like, you know, people say it's like a smaller magazine than yours because it's a postcode magazine. You can't really view it online that well. It literally just goes through people's doors. It's just a free magazine. It's like, if I didn't start doing that and I hadn't met Mike, who had this, you know, loose connection at Radio Sheffield to then get me in the building in the first place, then it doesn't matter what degree I'd done or what other experience, you know, I'd had. Like I wouldn't have even got the experience because I wouldn't have been in the building. So people underestimate, and again, this is something when I talk at colleges and stuff, people underestimate how powerful it is to just get experience young and doing it with somewhere like a magazine, or like people straight away, I want to be on TV, I want to be on radio. Well, that's not realistic. Like starting somewhere like this, and the fact that you're not just a magazine, like you've opened it up, you're doing these visual podcasts, like you go out and do interviews and stuff. It's like you can be a magazine and still be multimedia. Do you know what I mean? So massive. And if anybody is thinking, you know, like, oh, I want to get into journalism or, you know, music reviewing or whatever, just starting at a magazine, because more often than not, like, they need the little younger people to come in and start doing the stuff that maybe they can't get down on a daily basis and stuff, and they'd be happy to do it. So do it.
Email carl@rgem.press if you are interested in it as well, you know, whatever. One thing I do see though, and you kind of sometimes have a bit of a high turnover of people that send you an email and they're all passionate about writing, but once they've done it a few times, once they realize that it's quite hard work, it's quite time consuming, there's deadlines and that kind of stuff. We try and keep it as professional as possible, even straight away with the new people that want to you know, work with us, and we'll publish their stuff and give them experience and coaching and that kind of stuff. A high percentage kind of like disappear and just like don't contact you and that kind of stuff. So that I don't think people appreciate how hard work the industry is and how unglamorous it is at some point. People like the idea of writing, but when they realize it's hard work, they soon find other things that they're interested in. It is a tough business, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, people always assume that if you work in the media and like, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying that like I'm in the public eye or anything, or that, you know, you do a job where it's like something that seems fun, which it is, that it's like not hard work, and it's crazy. I mean, writing, again, it is so time consuming, but what you're writing has to be good, which I know sounds really obvious, but it's not about just sitting there for 3 hours and pumping any old whatever out. You have to, you know, write something that people are going to want to read, that you're going to be happy with, etc., all that kind of stuff. I might have to let her out for a wee.
That's all right. Do whatever you need.
I feel like if I let her out downstairs, she might scream, "Do you need the wee?" Can you imagine? Right, I'm just going to do the quickest run ever.
Whatever you need.
I will be back. Just give me 1 sec.
You're welcome, mate. So Ellie is just letting the dog out at the minute, ladies and gentlemen. Little pug face. I had my cat's not been very well recently, Fernando cat, and I bought some new trainers the other day. And I just had them out. I just tried them on, you know, they fit in that nice one. And then I put them down on the floor for a bit, and then I heard this, and I thought, oh no, what's that? That's cat noise for not being very well. Look round, and the cat. I'm just telling the people about Fernando cat. I got some new trainers. My cat called Fernando, and it would just instantly sick right in to be brand new trainers. So yeah, I don't know. I'll leave that story. That I'll just fill in a bit of time while he was like, is the dog okay?
Yes, she's outside, but she'll walk back in and she'll chill in the living room, because otherwise she'll just be running all over me again. But I love that your cat's called Fernando, by the way.
It's good. We've got Fernando and Rita. Yeah, we went for one cat and ended up getting two because there were two left. You can't leave one, can you?
No. Yeah. You did the right thing.
Yeah. So where were we? Yeah, so it's hard work, the industry, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, and especially with people who imagine that they're just going to like walk into, oh God, like the amount of people that you meet with egos, Carl, you must be exactly the same. Like, I can't even tell you, working in a BBC building, and God, I love my job. I love everybody I work with, and I genuinely mean that. Obviously, there's people that you don't know as well, or I wouldn't say I don't get on with anybody, but there's people that maybe aren't as talkative at work. So like, you wouldn't just go and bother them with, what did you do last weekend, because they don't care. Do you know what I mean? But it's like the amount of egos, oh my God. You'd think you're on like the Hollywood red carpet or something. It's like these people that come in, you know, do a couple of shifts or whatever. I saw it more when I worked at Radio Manchester. Do a couple of shifts, and then they think that like they own the space, or like they do an evening show and they think like, you know, I'm the big shot. And it's like, you're not. This is the thing, like, as somebody who's worked in evening shows for 5 years, it's not like I've got a breakfast job and I'm like, you know, saying, oh, there's no point doing that. That's all, like being on an evening show, you're like a nobody. I don't mean it like that, because then I'd just be putting myself down. I don't want to do that. Do you know what I mean? But you have to understand the hierarchy. So even people,
I have told Christian Carlisle off for this, by the way.
I feel like putting yourself down.
I'm only joking, Christian.
Yeah, but that's the thing though, is like, it's so hard to get in the first place, and then when you're in, the last thing you want to do is come across as like you're really big headed. You've got to just lay low, work hard, and then if you get an opportunity, run with it, because just getting there in the first place. Like, Carl, I remember when I was with my ex-boyfriend, who split up like over 2 years ago now, and his dad had just moved up to Manchester and I'd been at Radio Manchester about 3 months, obviously still working at Radio Sheffield. And he was like, have you presented a show there yet? Isn't that what you want to do? Have you presented a show there yet? It's like, these people that are presenting full time have been there for forever, right? And then there are people that have been there for a couple of years that are top of the list to cover. Why would I walk in after 3 months and be covering a show? It just, here she comes, blooming heck, opens the door and everything. I love how she just walks in like she owns it. But yeah, it's so hard. So the bottom line of this is, the thing that I'd say the most is, if you are genuinely passionate about it, and I know it kind of sounds like I'm giving a careers talk anyway, and you know what's coming next, but if you are genuinely passionate about it, you just need to put the work in and stick at it. Don't do something for like 3 months and think, oh, I don't like it. Do something for a year and then realize you don't like it and think, you know what, actually, I gave it a shot. I gave, 6 months to establish myself, 6 months to see what happened. If it didn't work out, it didn't work out, fine. Or go to a different organisation, company. Don't just sit somewhere that isn't right for you. You're all right now.
We've had people come through the RGM world that they write for the Guardian now and that kind of stuff. They're getting paid work for, like, the big boys. So we try and be, we've got guidelines, and like the BBC, we've got certain things we want to say. We try and be honest with bands as well, and offer critical constructive feedback with bands and that kind of stuff, which is even harder to do as a new writer, because you've probably not developed that skill yet. So there's always an area where you can challenge yourself and get better at it. But you are right, some of these writers write 2 or 3 things and then they're off. They think, oh, I've done that.
What are you doing? I've locked her out. Now I've got every other family. She's all right. You can shut the door. God, this is like a carry-on sketch. Where you talk about your cat being sick, mine needing to go out for a poo, people coming in. It's like that bloody meeting on BBC News where the guy's kids all came in.
Oh yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I can remember that.
This is our version.
And then they do what we're on about then. Oh yeah. So they write about 2 or 3 things, and then they kind of think, oh, I've done that now, I'll move on to the next thing. And then you see them not do it. So you just think their heart's not really in it. It's not what they really want. They just like the idea of being published in a music magazine for a bit, and then that's that. But you made your way into the BBC, mate. You got your foot in there. What was the first, like? Because, like, just following on the socials recently, you've covered for like loads of different shows in Sheffield. You must be like on call and just be like, right, I've got to be in Manchester in like an hour somehow because I've got a show to do that I've just been booked to do. You must have been like, it looks like online like you've been pulled around quite a lot, and you've grafted and you've just made it happen for you, and being available for everything really in the BBC to learn as much as you can. That's how it feels from watching you online.
Well, I'm glad it feels like that, because that's how it is. Right. To be honest, people always say to you when you start any job, they're always like, just say yes to everything, be available. And it is just, that's so true, because if every third opportunity that I got had said like no to, I probably wouldn't have been like even in the running to be the breakfast presenter. You have to, unless you're ill, right, then I do believe in like putting your health first and stuff, but I just think you've got to be available. Like, I got this because I'm living in Manchester at the minute. I'm literally moving just before my show starts, because I moved up here and I was working 6 days a week in total for the last 2 years, which is like, because with me, and I'm saying this, like, I know when some people say they've got chronic fatigue and they're like, you've got chronic fatigue, and they don't understand it. Because I've got endometriosis, I genuinely do have chronic fatigue, and like, when I am not working, Carl, I'm in here, I'm conked out, I'm asleep. I don't have a social life. I've only recently started, like, now I've had a bit of a change in shift pattern, and I don't work Saturdays. Like, I used to double shift on a Saturday and then do a full week, and on a Sunday I'd just be dead, So it's been hard, and it has been 2 years of like really, really hard graft. But at the same time, I've managed to work in Nottingham. I say that like my mum, because she's a Cockney. Nottingham. I presented at Stoke 3 times. What a weird place is Stoke, by the way.
I know.
Have you ever been?
I went on a meeting with work once there. It's a nightmare to get to, for one. And I couldn't park anywhere, but I can't really say out because I live in Manchester and it's same here. They didn't seem very friendly to me, this northern bloke trying to like ask questions about where do I go. But ayo, you know, Stoke's a Stoke. Oh, I do know one last ones that are called Lissy Taylor is an amazing artist and a really talented, really talented. And I loved her accent because she sounded a bit like Robbie Williams a little bit. And I just thought, oh, that's quite. I didn't think Stoke had an accent until I interviewed Lissy Taylor, and then heard the. I said, oh, that's quite unique. And then I started to like Stoke again.
Yeah, no, I do you know what? I only knew of Lissy because she came on when I covered on Stoke 3 times on the evening show, and it was kind of like, you got 3 hours, what do you want to do? Because you produce it as well there. So I got her on for like 40 minutes just chatting, played a couple of the tracks and stuff. I thought she's ace, absolutely ace and stuff. So yeah, I mean, in Stoke, it was just, I just thought it was a weird place, man. I'm not like slagging off the people. I just thought it was like a weird place anyway. So Nottingham, Stoke, and then Leeds. This is what I mean about being available. So I knew that I had the breakfast show about at least like 8 weeks before it came out. And then Leeds started ringing me because my editor is the same editor for Leeds and Sheffield, saying, oh, can you come and present the Sunday breakfast show? And I was like working till 9 o'clock the night before, and I was like, so I've got to get up at like 3.
Nice.
And I didn't go to bed till like 10:30, which I know doesn't sound very hardcore, but
it does.
For me, it is. You know what I mean? It's like, but then you just do it and you have a laugh. And I didn't even know what the layout of the show was, but you just have to go in there. You know, everybody can read. You just trust that you can read, and you just sort of like get on with the show and ask questions as you're kind of going along with it. And then obviously working at Manchester for the past 2 years, I was doing like reporting, producing, the odd presenter shift, reporting for Brecky, presenting for Brecky and stuff. And then it was just mad. And do you know what? The only thing I don't like about being available all the time is it's great that your months are always stuck with stuff, because as freelance you have to say yes, otherwise you just won't be working. But Monday, Tuesday I'd be, you know, working, coming back at like 11 o'clock at night. Wednesday I'd be planning from home, which was nice because it's like, you know, I can actually do that from bed, don't tell anybody. But then Thursday, Friday I'd be getting up at 4 a.m. So your weeks were like mad. And then Saturday you got up at 7, and then I wouldn't be back till like 9. I mean, I'd come back about 3 just after my first shift to let Luna out for a wee and a poo, as you know, she needs them. And then I'd just be back out. And then again, that's not fair on her, like not making it all about Luna. She's just chilling next to me. But I've always wanted a pug forever. Like I've got memories coming up on my Facebook from 8 years ago saying, oh, pug's amazing. And the fact that I had to leave her like that is just, you know, upsets me. So when I moved back to Sheffield, and then, you know, I'm out at like 4 anyway, well, 4:30 or whatever. And then I'll be back by, you know, 12. So really she'll sleep till 10. Do you know what I mean? She's only been left alone for 2 hours, then I'm with her.
How do you get time to, as a young lass yourself, how do you get time to enjoy yourself and just do what young people do?
I don't. Do you know what, like being serious though, I've put, and I don't mean, sometimes you meet people and they're like, if you want to make it in this industry, don't go out with anybody, don't like, as in don't have a relationship, don't have distractions in your life and all this. Why you'd live so miserably? That's weird. I don't like my own company, that's the thing. I don't think I'm annoying. I can't be annoying to yourself, but I don't like being on my own and that. So I think I've worked so much, and I don't mean this in like some inspirational way, it's just like fact. I've worked so much that I've had to say no to so many of my friends' plans. Like one of my friends, God bless her, she's got it all down. She's 20, literally 24, and she's got a house, she's married, she's pregnant with her first child. Got another friend who's got a second baby on the way, another one that's engaged. Everybody, you know, has got their own houses. I mean, still renting and stuff, so at least I'm on there. I'm not living with my mum and dad, like, but I've had to say no to so many times of going out, or when they've arranged to all just meet up at the pub or whatever. And I regret that so much. But at the same time, it's like if I hadn't have done that for 2 years, then, and I don't mean it in a selfish way, God, I love my friends, I talk to them all the time on like our group chats and stuff, but if I hadn't have sort of said no and worked the Saturdays and then worked here early in the week and stuff, then I wouldn't have been able to be open to, and now I've got that, like this is the first time, Carl, in 5 years, as of November 6th, that I'm going to have the same shift for 5 days and a weekend. So it's taken its time, but
And
it's paid off.
You're gonna have all these afternoons when you can just like meet somebody up for I don't know, whatever you do in the afternoon.
Whatever you do, yeah, just bottle of vodka in it, caffeine or something like that. No, it'll be nice. It'll be so nice just to have that time and actually on a weekend think, oh my God, like I can go and meet my friends. I can stay over at the house like with 10 again and stuff. And it'll just be, I'm ready for it, man.
Well, you deserve it, and you've grafted for it, and you don't get anything without working hard in this industry, do you?
No, when people, like I was saying before, sometimes just expect things and they think, you know, they make the mistake that once they're in the building, that they're just going to climb now, and it isn't like that. You do. The one thing I will say, right, is the attitude of people. I have never ever believed in being nasty to people in order to, like, you know, try and make them doubt themselves so that you can sort of climb higher than them, or putting other people's work down and stuff. And I know it sounds like I'm doing some kind of anti-bullying campaign at a school right now, and it's really cringe, but it's so true, because you meet, and I won't say where because I'll get in trouble, but you meet people at work who just talk down to you, that can be like 10 years older than you, max, and they just talk down to you and they don't believe in anything that you're doing. They'll take apart your work, and trust me, mate, I'm open to constructive criticism always, because you have to be, but there are people that will just talk down to you and stuff, and I hate that, and I couldn't imagine like being that person. Do you know what I mean? Being that person to sort of like just be purposefully nasty to people at work. I just think, oh my God. Or you'll have had this as well, maybe like when you were like growing up and stuff, is that when you ask people for help and they sort of like ignore you or don't want to help you or don't want to give you people's emails, you're like, I'm not coming after your job. Just help me out. Like, I've always thought that as well, because I do get, you know, sometimes I get people messaging me on Instagram like, oh, how did you get into the BBC, or, you know, and they don't, like, I'll tell them and then they just won't reply, and I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird, did you just want to say hello? Or sometimes like I'll tell them and then they just expect it to be this like one straight route, and they get frustrated when it's not, and you just think like, but I'm always there to give people emails to help people and do stuff like that, because when you get sort of shouted, I'll tell you this one thing. So I won't say who it was because I don't want to do that, but I told somebody that I was going for the breakfast job, and they said to me they just didn't really like say anything, and I said, you know, like, I don't think I'll get it though, because then I got nervous. I was thinking, do they think I'm like really full of myself? And they just went, right. And that was the end of that conversation. I was like, that's so rude. Like, you didn't say anything. And then I said, oh, I don't think I'm going to get in. They're like, right. As in like, think that. Do you know what I mean? And I just thought, I talk to everybody at work, like everybody I make an effort with. I always have, because, you know, when people say to you, oh, you know, be nice to people who are like under you work wise, because they'll be like on top of you one day. That sounds like a weird sexual thing. But that's like just to be like a nice bloody person, I think, and get that kind of response. You just think, oh, like, you don't deserve the success you have, kind of thing.
Have you always had your eye on the breakfast show then? Has that been one of the like, I want that job?
Do you know what? Genuinely, no, because I didn't even think that would ever come up. If people said to me, you know, when you have your sort of, well, obviously you don't, because you're self-employed and you're kind of your own boss in that respect, but if you have like a conversation where it's like, where do you see yourself in 6 months' time, and you have that with your boss and that, then I always said like, oh, my dream is to be like a full-time presenter and all this stuff. But I genuinely never thought that would come up and would be like available to me, because, you know, it's only because of all these changes within the BBC and like the structure of it, and the afternoons are being shared between certain cities now, but breakfast and mid-morning are staying the same. And I never, like, even when applying for it, but then I got some really good advice, because I'd done a couple of what they call boards interviews. I did 3 in total, for 3 different jobs. And then after my second one, I started to sort of like doubt myself a bit. And then my last one was the breakfast show, and Dan, who's like our executive producers, like the sub-editor was like, if you go in there and you have no confidence, Ellie, they're not going to take note of anything that you're saying. Like, even if you really think you're, you know, he didn't say this, but think you're crap, basically, you've got to go in there like, you know, when people say, oh, as if you've already got the job. And I did that and I managed to get it. I was like, there is nobody that can do this other than me. I'm going like, I don't believe that. You know, saying all that kind of stuff. And it was just mad.
What's the interview look like? So is it like a normal job interview? Do they like tell me about a time when you succeeded in this, when ratings were low and we needed a boost for rating? I don't know. I'm just trying to guess what a BBC person would say. What does the interview like process look like? Is it like, it's not just three blokes behind a table, is it?
No, there's women now as well.
There's women in the BBC, right? Okay, got you. Right, fair enough.
See how far we've come.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so they had like, what would happen is you had to send off this big like application form, right, and it was with your sort of ideas and stuff like that, just for, you know, show features or what you do for the area, why you're the best person to represent the area and all that kind of stuff. So you send that off and then you had to make a 15-minute demo. You know, usually when you're doing radio stuff, it's like, just send a 5-minute demo over. 15 minutes. I was like, God damn. And then you've got to think, right, what do I want to put in that? So you had to make like, you know, something that was funny, something that showed you being serious, you know, taking somebody to task. So the other thing is that if you don't have all this experience, there's just no way that you're even going to get an interview for stuff, because you have to show that you've already done it all for a job like that. But luckily, like you say, because I was just covering every Tom, Dick and Harry I could in every place, I managed to have some, and it was fine that I was saying, oh, hi, it's Ellie on Radio Manchester in that demo, because it doesn't like matter where you've done it kind of thing. And so yeah, so I sent that off and then they were like, oh, well, you've got this interview on this day or whatever. First mistake I made, I was in Sheffield anyway, but they sent me a Zoom link. So I jumped on this Zoom link. It was at 10 a.m, 1 minute past 10. There was nothing. I was like, you know, you're just like frightened. You're like, oh my God, like if you think you've missed the bus and stuff, you're just like, oh my God, like what's happened here? And then I sent my editor an email. I was like, like the Zoom link's not working. He said, oh, I thought you were coming in. I was like, black mark against my name now. You thought I was coming in, like, oh no. But the thing is, I'm glad that I didn't, because I had like 10 pages of notes in front of me, and you are allowed notes, but if you go in with 10 pages of notes, I think what you're doing, if you've got them stuck to your laptop here, you can sort of just look over there and do all that kind of thing. And it's not cheating, because it's you that's written it anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you sat in this meeting. I had Simon, who's my editor, Katrina, who's the head of Yorkshire, and this other fella called Andrew, who's like, you know, head of commissioning and stuff. There's another woman called Chris Burns, who is like the head of like local and stuff. So she was in 2 of them, but one of them, it was this guy called Andrew for the breakfast show. And they, you know, immediately like, take your time, you know, don't say anything you don't want to say, whatever, and just like, because they're trying to like calm me down, but you get marked on, and I suppose it's the same with any job interview, you get marked on if you keep your energy all the way through. So if they asked me a question that I wasn't sure about and I showed that I wasn't sure about it, that would be me sort of like dropping, and they knew that I was like lying about something. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like your body language changes. So the whole time I was like, as if I'd like, you know, drank 10 cups of coffee the whole way through it kind of thing. Really sort of assured myself. But they ask you questions like sort of, who will you be to the audience? So on one of them, I was thinking, do they want me to say like somebody that will inform and do all this? And then I realised they wanted me to say stuff like, I'll be the girl next door, the girl that you can gossip to, the girl that you can moan to, the girl that will be a shoulder to cry on, all that kind of stuff. So I said all that, and then they'll say, you know, what will the show look like with you? What will the show be famous for? That's always a question that you get in interviews like that. And I'm like, being really funny, I guess. Or, you know what I mean? I can't remember it now. It was like 12 weeks ago, but all that kind of stuff. And then what kind of presenter will you be? Tell us about a time, you know, if you've had to deal with friction between colleagues, how have you diffused that? And I thought, well, everybody's got somebody at work that they've had a bit of a run-in with. So I thought, oh, here we go, you know. And it's somebody at a certain radio station that a lot of people have had run-ins with. So I thought, they'll know who I'm on about here and it'll be fine. They don't say any names or anything like that. So it'll let some kind of grass. I had obviously experiences with that, and then, you know, what was the most surprising piece of content that you've made? Like the word surprising, you're like, what does that mean? So you kind of just have to guess, really. It goes on for about 40 minutes or so, and then they eventually
quite intense, I presume. I bet you were sweating up way out.
Oh, when I get stressed, yeah, I like it's going a bit red here, but I'm not stressed. It's like my whole face will come up in like, I don't want to say hives, that sounds ugly, but just like stress, like red face and stuff. By the end of it, I looked like I'd run a marathon. I came sat in the front room with my mom. Said I can't breathe, you know, like you're just so stressed out. And the thing is, when you're doing an interview as well, when you sat up straight, I mean, I'm sat on my bed, so I'm relaxed, but you're almost like breathing in the whole time because you're like, you don't want to relax kind of thing. And it was intense, it was scary. And even though the faces that are new, you have to pretend like they don't know anything about you because they're interviewing people across like the board, especially what's happened with BBC Local. There could have been people in Surrey applying for that job. So you have to, just be mindful of that and don't assume that they know anything about you. It was intense. And it's like, for me, who, I think I've said this to you before, like I am genuinely quite shy. Like I think a lot of people that work in media are quite shy. So to be in that environment and be like, oh my God, I really have to push myself here was just, intense. But then when I'd done it, I could breathe, man. It was just the best thing ever. And then to actually have got it, I was like, "Are you sure?"
Did that person that turned the nose up at you, have they changed the tone around you?
Well, yes, they've since congratulated me and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but that's the thing, is that sometimes I think people that are like that don't realise how they're coming off. But then it was, you know, it is the most important job opportunity of my life, and they should have, like, you know, at least had the, because I've not done anything to them. They could have at least just been like, "Oh, that's nice."
Yeah.
Rather than,
No, that's. I'm fascinated with the structure of a show, and particularly like local radio features. Sometimes, how do you do it so it's not like Alan Partridge?
do you know what? I've been on that at least once. That hashtag accidental partridge on Twitter.
Right.
I was a victim of that.
I've seen your TikToks. There's a few on there and all.
Well, exactly. But do you know what? Like the thing is with TikTok, I'm so grateful for it because I managed to get like 30,000 followers on it. I've not really been posting on it that much recently. It was more in the pandemic and stuff. And all I could think at that point was, and I don't mean this in like this sort of diva-ish way at all, but like any attention is good as long as they're not going die or something like that. Like just, you know, to get the followers up was kind of, again, something else that you could show, like, hi, I'm good at social media because I've managed to do this. When really TikTok isn't you being good at social media, it's just luck, complete luck. That's all it is, really. I think actually getting sort of, and not that 30k is big on there, but big in there ish. And I've literally forgot what you asked me already. This is what
what did I ask you? Oh no, yeah. How do you not be too Alan Partridge?
Oh yeah, and I'm being bloody Ellie Partridge. Yeah, so the thing with local radio, right, is that you, unless you were like 50 plus, you probably wouldn't listen to it. And I'm very aware of that, which is another reason why people might think, well, why is some 24-year-old girl presenting a breakfast show on local radio? Like, that just doesn't make sense. But the point is that we don't want to just have chats about, and this is very Alan Partridge, just chats about like the community fair. Don't get me wrong, it's important, but don't just like talk about something like that and you know, ask the same generic questions about things all the time. You must get that, you know, when you interview people like, what was your inspiration for starting the band? And you've got to ask the questions, and you just feel shit doing it because you're like, oh. But all that kind of stuff. So the way that we have now viewed our new show, we were planning it yesterday, like was in this meeting for 3 hours and 45 minutes, just sat there like getting it down, is that we want to make it fun. Like, of course, we have to talk about what's going on, everything in Gaza at the minute. You have to, because you're a BBC station. It's not like commercial where you just do that in the bulletin and then you're doing a competition for 10 grand. It isn't like that. So you still have to like not shy away from that stuff. Obviously, you know, you're a broadcaster. You have to give people the news and whatnot. God, I'm so illiterate, and I've got a breakfast show along. But we want to make it fun. So the way that we see it is the show 6 a.m. till 10 a.m. you have in all local radio stations on the breakfast show, 7 till 8:30 is full speech, no music, just full speech, yeah. And that's been like that for forever, really. So between 6 and 7, we want to make that really interactive. People just getting up, they're walking their dogs, they're driving to work, all that kind of stuff. But they've got the smart speaker on in the kitchen, very modern. So we want to get like a really interactive game in there. And we were toying with the facts that I love the 80s, anything 80s. I know like all my hair's falling out and it's like barely on and stuff, but so we wanted to make like an 80s game. So that's what we're going to do in that hour. And that's going to be the same feature every day. And then from 8:30 onwards, we're going to have a different feature every day. So it'll still be the same like throughout the week. Sorry, I'm literally eating my dog right now, my accent. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, after 8:30, there'll be a different feature. Obviously, that will stay weekly. So it will be like one feature that Monday, a different feature that Monday. So it'll be like, and then the same feature in the 6 to 7 hour, just because when the radar man comes around, who is like the person that looks at all the radio figures, and that's how they find out every year, like how many people are listening. It's literally somebody that just comes around your house and says to you, what are you listening to? If you think each show has an identity, like, oh, on Tuesdays they play that, top 10 game or something, that's like a bit of a rubbish example. Or they were saying what we listened to last Tuesday, and they're like, oh yeah, well they always do that game on Radio Sheffield on Tuesday. It's about sort of getting that show identity. And I think that, I'm sorry, other people are ringing me now. I've not got time. It's because, so I'm still doing my upload show at the minute.
Yes.
Right. Which I think I'm just going to be doing till I die, basically, because nobody's organised somebody else to do it. So I just sent my line manager a message saying, am I actually still doing upload next week? And she's ringing me now because it'll be like, I don't know, are you? It's like, oh, just keep doing it I love upload, don't get me wrong. I'm like, I know it's nowhere near as big as Introducing or anything like that, but the amount of people that I've met and have come through and have said, oh my God, you're the first person to play my song. I'm like, I don't know why, but it's like, it's really built a community and it's really nice. But with the Alan Partridge thing, I think that the way that you most sound like him is when you interview politicians and you say something stupid or or like you try and be like too pally with somebody. Like there are presenters, every time somebody comes on, if they're from a theatre production, can I get a part in it? And it's like, that sounds rubbish. Or like a presenter's that always like, oh, I love you, we're best friends now. And you're like, why are you saying that? You just sound stupid. Like really not authentic and stuff. So I think just making it fun, but not being cringe or sort of like out of touch with people. And, if they don't like something, we just change it. It's as simple as that, really.
Yeah, is that the biggest challenge then following, Toby Foster that had the role for many years that the community of Sheffield are used to waking up with? Is that going to be one of the biggest challenges, winning people over a little bit, I suppose, because you're a new voice, completely different style to Toby, that kind of stuff. How do you see that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, don't get me wrong. And I think that he's been there 17 years. He's moving on to afternoons now. So we do regional afternoons 2 till 6 every day. And he is such an iconic voice because he's got such a distinctive voice, first of all. Like people know him, and the fact that he's a stand-up comedian, that's like, a breakfast show with a stand-up comedian, like how the hell do you follow that, really? So don't get me wrong, I feel the pressure. I am so aware that there's going to be backlash, but rather than completely changing the show, even though it's going to have a new look, we'll just have to keep that, again, that fun comedic element. Like you've always got somebody else on air with you, like Nick from the news. We're going to have somebody else who sort of like comes in and does little chats with me and discussions and things, who is part of the show, like an on-air producer kind of role. But initially I was just thinking like, how do I try and get up to his standard, which I know is going to take me forever, and not like lose listeners in the process? Because don't get me wrong, on that first show there'll be people texting in like, who are you? What's this? Go away, where's the fun? But I think one of my things is that I don't shy away from being cheeky, and I'm a big lover of an innuendo and a euphemism and whatnot, and I genuinely think that that's how, not like you don't hook people in by being like smutty, but you hook people in by like showing them that you're up for a laugh.
Yeah.
do those harder interviews. But if somebody sends in something that can be taken two ways, you read it the naughty way, and you like have a proper laugh and basically say that you're like open to everything. Because I think that's the biggest thing with Toby, is that he still is known as somebody that like doesn't take any rubbish. Like he shoots for politicians, or you know, all the stuff that's been going on with the lead mill recently. I know a lot of people don't like what Radio Sheffield have been saying, but he didn't care. Like, you know, he's saying what he wants to say because it's Toby, you know. And I think in a way I have to learn to actually be as cutthroat as that, because if you're a breakfast presenter, there's no point being there if you're just going to sort of be like, yeah, that sounds about right. Do you know what I mean? And it's difficult as well, because especially with all the lead mill stuff, like my parents met in the lead mill. I love the lead mill like so much, and it's really sad to see what's happening with it. And I don't just mean like the whole Save the Lead Mill campaign. What I mean is like the two sides just constantly arguing, one speaking to the media, obviously Dominic Madden speaking to the media, the lead mill on. And I remember somebody from the lead mill emailing me, and I was like, if you just came on and like gave your side, and I understand why they don't want it, because they said that, you know, their words get twisted, not necessarily by the BBC, but just by any media, their words get twisted. But
yeah, I've asked them. You
need to, don't you? Because if you've got somebody like Dominic Madden speaking up, who seems like, you know, somebody that is very factual, is very professional, he knows how to speak. If you've got somebody like that going up against you and you genuinely feel like they're doing you so wrong, you have to speak up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was emailing them like, you need to come on. And it wasn't because I believed one side more than the other, because again, BBC staff, I'm not allowed to, but you have to show that. So I think that's the other thing is, you know, challenging people, not enough for them to like not want to come on the show again, but actually being like, well, this is the reason I've got the job, kind of thing. And I think that's the best way to follow him is sort of coming with both barrels, you know, and just personality and things like that.
Well, Ellie, mate, I'm proper proud of you. Congratulations on the show, mate. I know you're going to smash it. I've got full confidence. I think you're the right person for the job. Sheffield's going to love you. And I just wish you all the best with it. And thanks for joining us for the show today, mate. Nice one.
Oh, Carl, honestly, bless you. And thank you so much for letting me do stuff for RGM. Thank you for doing this. And obviously, Lena needs to say goodbye.
Oh, is it?
She was asleep, but she
there
says
we go. Look at that little face. It just reminds me of Men in Black.
Yeah, I know everybody says that. Oh, well, one of my uncles was like, "What is that? Is it?" And it look at her. Oh, Carl. I know some people think pugs are ugly, but she just sleeps all the time. Anyway, she says goodbye and thank you for
nice one, mate. Ellie, if you ever need up, mate.